Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our ongoing modding tutorial, creating the G3 community item pack. I hope everybody's doing well. I thought I'd take a moment. I think that the weekend streams tend to be a little bit more well attended. So I just want to talk a little bit about what we've done during the week in case there are people joining today who missed the Monday to Friday streams. So what we've been doing is usually kind of splitting the streams into like two halves, and usually the second half will make items, but the first half usually will tackle some other subject of what we've been doing. So we did a day where we did like an overview of scripting. We had a day where we talked about spell states. Yesterday we did dialogues and upgradable items. So it's just kind of a way so that it's not just 2 hours if we're just making items. And in that vein, today I was thinking that we would do a little bit of artwork for the game. I'm not going to spend a tremendous amount of time because for the most part, the difficulty for artwork in the game is actually the creative process of creating the icons. And for that's kind of more general artwork. I'm going to talk a little bit more about getting the artwork into a format that the game could use, because I feel like you can probably search for like an art tutorial and find, millions of sources better than whatever guidance I can give you. So I thought that we'd start with a little bit of an overview on where artwork in the game comes from, what you as a modder will probably need to worry about, and then we'll actually make some icons. A big part of this, I hope he's here today. Zen Black has given me a ton of really, really nice artwork. Not for all the items, but for quite a few. So we're going to add his art for what we have. We'll do an example of like a quick and dirty piece of art you can do for one of the other items. And then we'll go from there. The other thing I want to do is the EE support new portrait icons. So I'd also like to do some new portrait icons that we can drop in for, like, for example, the Executioner's Putty. I thought that people being under the effect of that item really need a custom icon to show, a portrait icon to show that it's active. So first, all right, so let's talk about where artwork comes from in the game. So there's essentially 4 places that the player is going to see artwork generally. Now, this isn't all of them. There are some exceptions, but for the most part, you're going to be dealing with bitmaps, which are generally you're going to deal with usually in the context of NPC portraits. Those are all in a bitmap format. There's tile sets, which in the original are in TIS files. In the EEs, they're PVRZs. Tile sets provide area artwork, so if you're ever making areas, you'll be dealing with tile sets. There's MOS files, which are kind of large-scale graphics. MOS files are used for like the chapter text screens, like when you first meet Galen Bale in chapter 2, and then it cuts to the screen, and then there's like the deal is made, right? The backdrop to that is a MOS. You probably won't need those unless you're going to make your own kind of custom cutscene text narration screens like that, but they are a format. And then the overwhelming majority of time that you're spending with artwork in the game is probably going to be in BAM files. And BAM files do everything. They're everything from you can overlay them on a tile set to do like little animated bits in an area. They're item icons, they're spell icons, they're sprite animations. So creatures themselves are made of BAM files, usually multiple BAMs overlaid to create a sprite in game. So just really quick, so let's take a look. Like I said, we're the E right now. So tile sets are PVRZ files. So this is, for example, this is one of the dream candle keeps. Let's see. Well, let's find something a little more familiar. Maybe like the docks, perhaps. That should be. And you can see these are all I'm not going to spend too much time on tile sets. I just want to show so you can see like bits that these all go together to make like the dream candlekeep sequence. So like I said, you're not going to deal with tile sets too much, but this is where all of area art comes from. There's slightly different formats between the original and the EEs. On the EEs, we had space requirements and we had to make them under a certain gigabyte limit for the mobile platforms. And the main way we did that was tile sets were compacted into PVRZs. This is a much more compact format compared to the original's format. And then the other one was sound files. They were waves in the original. In general, they're OGs in the EEs, and that got us like 95% of the way to the space requirements for the mobile. So that's why these formats were changed between the EEs and the originals. So those are PVRZs. The other ones I mentioned were MOS files. So and these are also the mini maps when you look at areas. Let me find you a chapter text screen. You'll recognize these as soon as we find one. Oh, here we go. This is the deal is made screen, the one I was talking about earlier. So this is a MOS file. These are generally just one bit of artwork, and they're you use them in a few places. So those are MOS files. Bitmaps, which I mentioned, are primarily for character portraits. You can use them for item artwork. This is something that the EEs allowed. I still like to do my item spell artwork in BAMs because that way they're easier to port back to the original engine. So you can do bitmaps for these, but for the most part, and then I also forgot. If you're doing area artwork, you'll need to do search maps, height maps, and light maps. We're not going to talk about those, but those are also bitmaps. But let's take a look at. So here, your bitmaps, these are all your character portraits. And anybody else who may want to talk to you. Generally, the other people who get character portraits are like party members, and then there's like a handful of others like Bodhi, Irenicus, the Solar gets one, Melisson, etc. But the main thing where where the majority of the art is stored are in BAMs. Now BAMs have two things in them. They have cycles and frames. So a frame in a BAM is just a singular image. And then you can define multiple frames into a cycle. So you have everything from, the simplest example is like a spell icon. This has one frame that's been put in one cycle and is simply an image. Right? This is as simple as it gets. But BAMs are also used for, let's pull up they're also used for creature animation. So you can see this one has 47 cycles. And they contain all sorts of bear animations in multiple states, right? You had him walking. This was basically he's dead or asleep. This is an idle animation. Another dead or asleep. So this, you can see, is an exceptionally complicated BAM. And if we were to look at it, let's bring this over here. You can see, look, this is how many frames it has composed of it. It's composed of 139 frames, which are then organized into 47 cycles. So this is like the peak end of how BAMs can be complicated. Fortunately for item icons, it's generally very, very simple. So item icons, I want to close it. Item icons generally have two frames or two BAMs. So one is the I version. The I version. So this is for Amulet 01. This is just for I think this is the Necklace of Missiles. So the I version is basically the one that is going to appear on the inventory screen. And generally you have two versions of it. You have one with a shadow. This is the version that is like when you pick up the item and you're moving around the inventory, it uses this. And then when you actually place it into an inventory slot, it'll use this animation. The EEs Now, in the original, everything is two frames like this. You've got the one with the shadow and then the one that actually goes into the inventory slot. The EEs, for the most part, not all of them, went to a single. Let me see if I can find one. Just a single image. So this is your basic bastard sword. And it uses this image for everything. There's no longer separate animations for when an item is picked up and moving around and when an item is... oh, come here, Iris. There's no longer an animation for... There's no longer separate animations for when an item is moving around and when an item is placed to a slot. It uses the same animation for both, and it will just rescale it as needed to fit the inventory slot. So we're going to use the classical original Baldur's Gate two-frame BAMs because all the items here, we're hoping to backport them to the original BG2. So that's what we're... So even though EE support like this single frame item BAM, that's not what we're going to be doing today. So those are the item BAMs. And then the other piece of artwork... Hold on. I'm trying to disentangle my cat. There we go. So this is what would have. This is what you'd see on the inventory screen. There's also the C series of BAMs, and this is the bit of artwork that shows on the description. So these tend to be more. You can see there's these. They look like they're hand drawn, like a sketch, and they're black and white, or technically brown and white. So every item needs essentially two pieces of artwork. Now, if the items themselves look very similar and just have, say, different coloring, it means you can reuse, excuse me, you can reuse the description artwork between items. So in the olden days, and what we're going to do for this too, one of the easiest ways to make item art was you just take like an existing, like an existing, say, bastard sword animation, and you just recolor bits of it, and then that way you'd have, a new animation for the item, and then you can just reuse the description animation because again, the colors are the same. So in black and white, the description looks exactly the same. If you're making items for Icewind Dale, it's even easier. They don't have description images at all, so you don't even need to worry about the CBAMs for if you're making an item pack for Icewind Dale. So how do you, and then let's go back to items really quick. So if you look at items, we'll go to, I think we're still installed. Oh, I'm in the wrong directory. All right, this is the fix pack version. Let me go back to, we've been working in the tweaks, BG2EE. All right, I think it's currently installed. It is, all right. So we look at like Akabar's Battleblade. There are three BAMs that you define here. So this is the IBAM that I was talking about. Right now it's using the Ring of Protection +2 graphics. So this is the BAM that would show on the inventory screen. And because it's one cycle, this is the BAM for not only when it's equipped, but for when you pick it up and are moving it around the inventory screen. This is the CBAM. This is the description. So if you pull up the description of the item, this is the little image that goes with the description. And there's a third one that I didn't talk about. They also have a BAM for when the item has been dropped and is on the ground. And you can see this little tiny ring. Generally, there's usually like one BAM per like item type, because generally anything that's on the ground ends up looking the same. So if we were to look through rings, pretty much everything is going to use that same generic G ring. Like everything is going to use that same G ring because it's a ring on the ground. It's not, you don't need to be able to tell Kangax's ring from, a greenstone ring if it's sitting on the ground. And that's true. And that's not just because it's small. Halberds will all use the same ground halberd icon, right? There's very little reason to try and distinguish something on a ground icon. In fact, I think the only mod that may mess with ground icons significantly is Tweaks Anthology, which blends in some of the original Baldur's Gate ground icons with the BG2 ones to better distinguish armors, because armors are a little more distinctive on the ground. So if we were to look at, not chains, chain. So there's like a chainmail versus splint mail. Or I'm sorry, chainmail and splint mail use the same icon. It's with tweaks that they get distinguished. And then Elven Chain also use the exact same icon, which is this. So this is Chain, Elven Chain, and Splint Mail. Like I said, I think Tweaks is the only mod that kind of messes with these in a significant way and makes these all distinct. And I do it basically by cheating and bringing in a bunch of original Baldur's Gate ground icons. So that's basically it. So pretty much for every item, you've got 2 icons. One, this is, like I said, the inventory screen, the description screen. The inventory screen is easy because it's I. Why description uses a C by convention, I don't know. If an item has an ability, you can also define a BAM for the ability. And the reason why you do this is the icon that will appear like in the bottom bar in the UI. And usually, like if it's a known spell, like this one is Globe of Blades. So we're using the Globe of Blade, or I'm sorry, not Globe of Blades, Blade Barrier. This is using the Blade Barrier icon from the spell. You can make this be the exact same icon as the item, which is always a good option if you don't know, or if the ability doesn't have like a generic known, if there's no good analog in the existing icons, you can always use the item for it. And generally, if you look at stuff like items with melee abilities, it will use the I icon as its melee icon, so that when you go to, when you're looking at your attack bar, it looks like the same icon that you have in the inventory will also be on the quick bar. You can make those different. It's probably not a good idea because that'll just confuse your players. But in theory, you could certainly make those different. So that's kind of our overview of where artwork goes in terms of items. Spells are similar. I'll just take a quick look at spells. So let's look at like Magic Missile maybe. Magic Missile, there we go. So same deal. You've just got one spell icon because there's no description image, and obviously there's no ground icon. And so we've talked about this before, but spells generally have 3 icons. There's an A, B, and a C variant. C icons for spells, this is the one that's going to end up in the spell book. The B variant with the stone background, this is the one that's going to be used on the UI, because usually the UI has like that black rock thing behind it. So it's basically the icon on a little bas relief bit of black rock. And then the A icon is the scroll. And you can see the scrolls use this 2-frame leftover from the original. So when it's picked up, it's a little rolled scroll with a shadow. When you place it into an item slot, it goes back to the flattened scroll with the spell symbol on it. So those are your standard A, B, and C. So like the Magic Missile scroll would use that A icon. The spell itself, you define it with the C because this is what's going to go in the spell book. And then on the actual abilities, you use the Stone BAM because this again is what's going to be used in the UI. Some innates, like if you think like the Kinsai's Kai ability and things like that, they don't have an A. They don't have an A icon because they're never a spell scroll. So for a lot of the innates and the kit abilities, you'll just have a B and a C, and there's no A defined because it's not needed. So, and that's, like I said, that's just by convention. When it comes to your mod, you can name your icons whatever is convenient for you, but sticking with the A, B, and C is probably not a bad idea. And then for items too, if you also try to work in the I and the C, that also makes it a little bit easier for other people taking a look at your mod. Again, not needed. You can name them whatever you want. But that's how we go. And then let's talk about one other thing. All right, so portrait icons. So portrait icons in the original are in one horrific BAM named states. And every little icon here is in their own little cycle. And for whatever reason, there's like 30 to 40 blank cycles before it picks up again. And so every portrait icon in the game, oh, it's more than I thought. It's more than I remembered. There we go. So out here at 65, it actually picks up again. So every portrait icon is defined in this file in its own cycle. So, and this is the only way you can do portrait icons on the original. So adding new portrait icons to the original is, at least on the fly, pretty much impossible. For isowindification, because it adds like 20, it will just overwrite this file because there's no good way to just insert portrait icons on the fly. And the other thing too, there's also a hard limit of how many portrait icons you can add, so you run out of space very, very quickly. So isowindification does it, but it also does it as a separate component, because if there's any other mod that wants to mod this file, it's pretty much you just have to pick one and stick with it. But that's the case on the originals. On the EEs, we can arbitrarily add, where is it? Stat description. We can arbitrarily add BAM files. So if you were to look at this on the original, it's just 2 columns. It basically says, all right, let me bring up the strings here. So icon 0 is 17391. So this is charm. Icon 1 is dire charm. Icon 2 is rigid thinking, and so on and so forth. And so it basically, all it does on the original, it basically says this icon, use this text with it. And this BAM file column doesn't exist. Now on the EEs, if you notice here towards the bottom, we're adding custom icons. So these are, and it's unlimited. We can add as many as we want. So EEs have defined 188 as 25904. Enchanted weapon. This is an icon that is just for the EEs. And you'll notice all these, if it uses like the 4 stars, that means go find it in the normal spot of states.bam. But if it's here and it has one defined, like the enchanted, that is the BAM reference to where you could, the artwork for this icon is Spell Wizard 417D. So we can actually just take a quick look at that. Spell Wizard 417D. And here we have a brand new portrait icon in its own little separate file. So the good news is we can add, at least on the EEs, we can add as many portrait icons as we want. And you can see the EEs by default already ship with quite a few of them. Like I'm pretty sure all these 510, these are spell immunity. These are all for the spell immunity spell. We added, let's see, 31671. We added portrait icons for every one of the versions of spell immunity, because otherwise you kind of had no way of remembering what was up. Or I think I may have just used one generic one. There's also 74314, which is Flaming Fist, 102865. So these are probably more kit abilities. Yeah, Frozen Fist. 111D, that's going to be a priest spell. 25601. Armor of Faith. Okay. So you can see it's really, on the E's, it's trivial to add a portrait icon, right? You find the next open slot, you give it some text to describe the portrait icon. This is going to be what appears on the UI. You know, when you open your character screen, it's got the little icon. This is the text that goes next to it. And then this is a BAM reference. This is the icon itself. So, and you can see these are tiny. These things are like 16 by 16. So you don't have a lot of, room to convey your message. So that's portrait icon. So let's start with, not yesterday, but I think the day before, we made the Executioner's Putty. Let's find that item. So here's the Executioner Putty. And what it does is it does Executioner Eyes once per day. And it basically to all allies. It basically boosts their critical hit range and their attack. So to me, this is basically a buff to your party. So quite naturally, I think that there should be a custom icon that goes with it. So I thought we could start there today. So we'll start with the very simple. So let me actually hold on. Let me go back to stat description. So what are we going to need, right? We're going to need to find the first open portrait, the first open number to add our icon. We're going to need text for the icon, and then we're going to need the icon itself. So let's see if I can find it. I wanted to do this at a time. Let's search. So I had written a thing about finding portrait icons in the semi-useful why do macro thread. Let's see if we can find it. Using Bammer. I really should have found this ahead of time. Here, let's just go to should be somewhere in here. Where's our semi-useful? Here we go. Oops, I want the first post. All right, here we go. This is what we're looking for, the new portrait icon. I think Argent also has a variation of this. So here we go. This is a nice simple, we've used functions in a few places, but we've never actually defined a custom one for ourselves. So let's drop this into a library. Let's come back to our G3 CIP. We're just going to call this functions, because in case there are other functions we want, we can also drop them in here. And so this is the first time that we have, oh, I grabbed the wrong macro. CD new portrait icon. Okay. This is what we want. So this is, we've used functions before, but this is the first time that we are creating our own function. So why do ships with a number of functions? Your best known are like the alter, clone, and delete effect ones. This one we're defining, so we're creating a new action function. This is the name of it, and then these are essentially what variables you are allowed to pass on to the function. So we're basically going to give it a string, we're going to give it a BAM file, and then the function is going to return to us an icon. And when you define these, you give these a default value. So if the user does not give you a string, by default it's going to use 0. If the user doesn't give you a BAM file, by default it's going to use the 4 stars. And then return is basically the default name of the variable that's going to be given back to you. And so essentially what this does is this opens up stat description. It finds the first open entry, and then it does the appending for us. So basically all we need to do is invoke this with a string, a BAM file, and then it will add that automatically, and then it will return to us the number of the icon so that we can then turn around and use that icon reference in items and spells. So, and I'm pretty sure I also included an example case. Yeah. So basically we use it here. We've passed it along a string reference. We've given it a BAM file, and then it returns as icon. And then we use that icon down here in parameter 2. So this is, we don't have the artwork yet, but we're going to go ahead and, So first, because this is in a separate file, the first thing we need to do is we come back to our TP2. We need to, let's see, let's do this. Have I made a BAM section yet? I don't think I have. I have not. All right, we'll make a BAM section then. See, we'll just call it generally artwork. So first we need to include this function, which is, remember, just a path to the file g3zip lib, and I called it functions.tpa. Actually, you know what? Because I'm gonna make this more generalized. I'm gonna put that up top. We're actually gonna put that first in case later we add more functions to it that are needed for more than just BAM work. I'm gonna include that very, very first. All right, so, and then let's go back to our sample case. And so, instead of use it, we're launching the action function. We call it by name. We're giving it a string. Now, in this case, we're going to be using a new string and not one that's in the game. So we can't just give it, use existing string 1, 2, 3. So resolve string ref is our way around that. Basically, you can give it an @ reference, and let's see, I'm pretty sure we have executioner's PuTTY. So the name of the ability is executioner's eyes. We actually already have it defined, so we're going to use that. So this basically tells Waidu, I want you to find the phrase executioner eyes in the talk. And if it's not there, then add it to the talk and give me the new string reference that you've just added it to. So resolve string ref is a way to pass along new strings in a function. That's primarily where you will see it used. And then the BAM file is going to instead be, what is the executioner eyes item called? G3C exec. So we're going to, the portrait icon, we're going to call G3C exec D. And then it's going to return the icon. And let's see, does this? All right, no, it does not copy over the icon itself. So we're going to need to, once we create the icon, we're going to have to remember to copy it over. So that will add the reference to stat description and then return us the icon value from it. So now let's actually make the icon itself. So let me come over here to BAM work. So this is kind of, I went through and copied over, Zen Black has PM'd me a bunch of icons, and then I went through the thread and pulled as many of the icons and artwork from there, from the items that we're making, as I can. For the most part, it wasn't too much, but so let's start with the easiest thing to do is to find an existing BAM. So let's find the Armor of Faith icon. We'll use that as our base. So SPR 2011D. So this is the new Armor of Faith icon. So let's export the BAM as the original. We're going to want to go to, yeah, we'll just drop it here for now. All right, let's go back to the game folder. It should be right here. Okay, so let's bring this over into our BAM work folder, because this is my working folder for all of this. So now we're going to use a program called Bammer. And Bammer was a program written by Scott Brooks at CamDawg. And it's basically a way that at the command line you can convert PNGs, which is a common graphics format, to BAMs. And the reason why we did this was so that if we ever had to go to the art department and say, hey, we've got these 5 new items, we need art for them, they could go into Photoshop or GIMP or, their graphics program of choice and make a ping and then just give that back to us. And then Bammer so that we didn't have to waste time converting pings to BAM. Bammer would also just do this for us. So we're going to, let's open a command window here. So what we're going to do is we're going to convert this existing BAM into a ping. Then we're going to modify that ping to look like what we want the executioner's icon to be. And then we're going to use Bammer to convert that ping back into an actual BAM. So let's see if I remember my Bammer syntax. I think it's dash question mark. Yeah. So Bammer is all command line. So we are going to Bammer input. We're going to use that SPPR 111D. We want to, we need to create a folder for it first. New folder. We're going to make it just SPPR 111D, even though we're going to rename it at the end. Output. So output is the folder where it's going to drop all your pings. Now, if you just run this here in the DOS window itself, it will give you all of your cycle and frame information, but we want to drop that into a file. So instead of outputting information here, this, if you don't know DOS, basically this says instead push all that output into this file. So when we hit enter, we should, if that was correct, let's refresh the tree, date modified. We now have a BAMD. Now, the BAMD is basically a text file that defines the frames and the cycles that are in the file. So this icon is incredibly simple. It has one frame that's made of this one ping, and that frame is used in one sequence. If there's multiple frames in the sequence, you could just keep adding frame references here as many as you needed. So we'll see that when we get into the icon and the item icons where there's actual multiple sequences. So you would just define as many frames as you need, as many sequences as you need, and then the sequences are made of frames, and you can just keep adding as many frames or as needed for this. But this is about as simple as it gets, right? It's one frame, one cycle. So it's basically just one little static piece of art. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go through and we're going to change the ping itself to be the artwork that we want. So let's go to, and it dropped the pings into this folder. We're going to make a copy just in case we screw something up, and then we're going to work on this directly. We're going to open with Adobe Photoshop. All right, and then the other thing is I'm going to grab the executioner putty. And I'm going to try and use this as the basis for our icon. Now, the problem is when you're dealing with artwork that's 16 by 16, it's hard to get, this may be just an unintelligible blob by the time we get to 16 by 16. So let's pull this up a little bit. Lime green is basically the traditional color of transparency. The transparent color can really be anything. The important thing is that, and Bammer does this for you automatically, but the important thing is that transparency is whatever color is defined first in the palette. And the good news is that we can just give Bammer a transparent ping by itself, and it will know to use that as the transparent color. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to, make a new layer. Oh, hold on. I need to go image. First, we need to unpalette it. We want to just change this to just plain RGB. And then we're going to make a new layer, and we're just going to trash the old one because, again, we're going to be starting from scratch. All right. Now this, let's grab, select the inverse. Actually, hold on. No, let's do something else first. Let's go image. We're going to trim this down to, we're going to get rid of all the extra, white space around it. Trim it down to, well, that kind of did it. All right, we're going to select inverse. And then just to be on the safe side, we're going to create a new file with just this. Oh, Whoops, let's try that again. A new file, except we want background contents to be transparent. There we go. V. Now we're going to see how this looks if we resize this down to 16 by 16. So we want the image size. Now, one of the problems is that we have to have hard edges because the originals. Well, let me step back for a second. The engine doesn't really do transparencies very, very well. Because this is purely for the EEs, we probably could get away with the smoother gradients option, but let's see what it looks like with hard edges first. Now, isn't that glorious? That is very easily, you can very clearly see that's an executioner's hood. Right? So this is one of the problems of, we have a nice graphic, you take it to 16 by 16, and now it looks terrible. So I'm going to, because the skill is called Executioner's Eyes, let's try instead using something like, there are a number of existing portrait icons that use eyes, like blind. And maybe we can use the blind icon and let's just recolor it instead. So this is, all right, so let's grab states. And first let's just look for which one is the blind icon. So actually, that is my wife calling. So let's take a quick break so I can get a chance to talk to her, and then we'll come back and go through this. So let's take a quick break. Hopefully, I'll be back in 5 to 10, and we will go from there.
All right, we're back. My wife is currently traveling on her way home, so she's at the airport and wanted to let me know that she'd gotten there safely. So she's back tonight. I'm very happy to get her home. So sorry about the interruption. We'll continue on. So we're gonna take a look at the horrific states.bam. We're going to export it, and then we're going to use Bammer on it, and you're going to see it's going to be substantially more complicated. And I didn't put it in the base. That's why. All right, let's grab states. Let's bring this over to BAMWork. Let's make a new folder for states, and then we're going to run Bammer again on states. States. Okay, so just as a point of comparison, if you want to see what a complicated BAM looks like. Oh, and I forgot to mention, these numbers are the respective X and Y coordinates in the frame. So you can you use these two to center a frame. Usually on the EEs, at least, these aren't as important because usually it will center the graphic for you. But these are important for the original. So, all right. So it dumped all of these. Unfortunately, we don't know which one specifically is going to be a few extra large icons. So let's see if we can find one of the eyeball ones, like blind. Actually, you know, there's an easier way to do this. Let's go to the ISDP. Let's go to portrait icons, and it's got it listed. All right, where's our blind? Blind is icon 8, which means it should be. It means I've already gone past it. Is this the blind icon? That is the blind icon. Okay, we're going to use this as our basis for execution eyes. So I think we're going to use this and then maybe just get rid of the X in the middle. So let's come back to here. Let's grab this, just drop this into Photoshop, and we'll use this directly. So we need to do the same thing. We're going to image mode, get this out of index color. And then we're going to select everything that's not the transparent coverage. Select the inverse. We're going to I didn't change this. Okay. Now we're going to go image, layer. We're going to new layer via cut. We're going to delete this. All right. So I'm going to create a layer behind it just so that we have a better idea of what we're doing. Even though we're not going to include this layer in the final. Just to give us a better idea of what we're doing. So I'm just going to, where's my eraser? There we go. We're just going to get rid of the little X in the middle. And then I think the other thing, let's see if we can give this a little color. Let's change this to a grayscale. Oh, actually, hold on, no. I need to delete this layer first. This is going to be an experiment. Let's see if we can go image, mode, change the grayscale, which it pretty much already is. And then we're going to image mode, do a duotone. But let's see if we can make this kind of that bright blue that it uses elsewhere. Oh, you guys can't see the color table work I'm doing. Okay. Which is more of a, almost like a turquoise. Yeah, something like that. All right. Oh, canceled out instead of, gosh darn it, something like that. Okay, and okay. All right, so now we're going to save this. Except in states, we're going to instead replace this. Oh, hold on, not this one. I want to save it as a ping, as a transparent ping. And instead, not in states, but we were using the, hold on. Oh, I don't want the desktop. I want the documents, my mod packaging, BAM work. And then we're gonna keep using this as our basis. Yep, replace. Okay. No, I don't want to save changes. No. All right, so I think that should be it. Let's see if we can. That should be the new turquoise one. Yep. All right. So now we're going to come back to Bammer, and we're going to use. So basically, what we did, we made a BAMD that references that ping. We updated the ping. Now we're just basically going to reverse this. We are going to Bammer. We're going to use the BAMD r111d.bamd as the input, and instead we're going to output. What did I name this? What do I want to name this BAM? We're going to name it G3C exec D. All right. And so this is going to produce G3C exec D.bam. And that should be, we should have a brand new BAM there. All right. Let's quickly open that up in the game and see what it looks like. The libraries, documents, mod packaging, BAM work. Why does it not want to open this? Okay. There we go. I don't know why the open dialog doesn't want to work. So we've got a little BAM for it. All right. So we successfully created the BAM from a ping. It's just that easy. So let's bring that into our folder. We're going to add it here in the BAM folder. So when we're just going to do one copy for that entire folder, because there's not going to be any modifications or anything else, because for the most part, artwork is just a binary file. Like, you're never going to like modify it as it goes into the game. So it's just going to be a straight, we're going to copy that entire folder to the override. So the nice thing is when we add item BAMs and everything else, it's just going to go straight into the override. We don't need to do any other modifications. So we've got we've now added the reference to this BAM in the state descriptions. We've added the BAM itself to the game. Now what we want to do is we want the executioner putty, the spell itself, to use that portrait icon. So if we come back down to the executioner putty. So the executioner putty, when used, will cast the executioner eye spell. And so if we take a look at that, this is G3C exec.spell. And so essentially what we want to do is we want to add an effect that does display portrait icon, which is op 142 on everybody that it affects. We're going to leave this at charm for right now because we're going to have to change this dynamically. Because again, we don't know if there are other mods have gone before us and have added portrait icons. We don't know where our new portrait icon is going to end up. So we're going to have to assign this dynamically. And this is, how long is this spell? This is it's a limited 60-second spell. So we want our icon to show up. Same thing, we want instant limited. We want it to be for 60 seconds. We want it to always happen because there's no save or anything else that blocks it. All right, so now let us save our changes to the spell. And now, when we copy it over, let's find where we're copying the spell. We are going to use the alter effect function, which we've used before. We want to match. We want to find the existing opcode 142. And hold on, let me go back to the spell really quick. And that's all we need to specify because it's the only 142. So that by itself already makes it unique. We don't need to worry about any other matches. And we want to change parameter 2 to whatever the value of our new icon is. So parameter 2 equal to, 1 second, let me grab the value for that. So this is going to, here it is. So icon, if we use this repeatedly, the icon value is going to keep getting overridden. So we're going to set the icon. So I think I can't remember if it's this way or that way. So whatever return value it gives us, we're going to instead put into, so icon is what the function gives us. We're going to set that to G3 exec, and then that is what we're going to use down here as the variable. I can't remember if it's either icon equals G3 exec or G3 exec equals icon. So we're going to try this really quick, run the code, and see if this actually works. And if not, I probably just need to reverse those. So we'll come back to our installer. First, let's see if we have any syntax errors. Always fun. No effects altered on G3 exec. Oh, because I know why. Because I didn't grab our updated spell with the 142 in it. So where's our G3C exec dot spell? I did not grab this for the mod folder, so that was my oversight. Replace this file. Okay, now let's try that again. And again, no effects were altered. All right, let's take a quick look then. Make sure that we have the right spell. Oh, okay. I know what I did again. All right, let's try this one more time. Except let's be smart about it. Let's instead grab the one directly out of the repo. WeDo does not have... Mikhail is asking, does WiDo have symbolic names for things like opcodes? It does not. I know a lot of these times I do not have these memorized. It's just that there are...
Call from 19.
My goodness, suddenly I'm popular today. The ones that we've been using, I just know really well. Like portrait icons are always 142 and they're in like frickin' everything. So there's no symbolic names. But what you can do is when you're in this list... Like if I'm looking for, I don't know, like strength bonus, right? I can press S and it's going to hit everything that starts with an S. Save, 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 save. Silence, sleep, slow, sparkle, stone to flesh, strength bonus. So if you have a good idea of what it is, you can just start mashing the first letter of it. And the whole list is like what, 300, 350. So you can usually find it relatively early, but otherwise that's just something that comes with practice. Unfortunately, there's no nice, simple, and this is 60 seconds. So a lot of this, like sometimes you'll see me do this from memory and then sometimes you'll see me mash to the list. And sometimes I'll just go to the ISDP. The ISDP is always the answer if you don't know something. Because it's a web page, there's a lot more things you can search for. Because even if you get the name of the actual effect wrong, you can usually put enough keywords that you'll find what you're looking for on the IESDP page. So, all right, so let's save this. But yeah, you can see a lot of the stuff I do from memory. Well, not a lot, but some of it I can do from memory. Some of it I need to go look up. All right, so let's try this one more time. There we go. All right, so this time it installed. Let's see. So first, let's check the stat description to make sure we have a new entry. We do. So 207 is 13601, which should be Executioner's Eyes. It is. G3C exec D should exist. That's our BAM file. G3C exec D.bam. There's our little eyeball. And now if we go to the spell, G3C exec Executioner Eyes, we should have it. Display portrait icon, Executioner's Eyes. So we've added a new portrait icon and we've assigned it to the spell so that it will play along with everything else. So that is your custom portrait icon. Again, this is something that only the EEs can do. The originals, in theory, you could add portrait icons on the fly. In practice, the answer is no. So that was a nice, easy way. Well, maybe not nice and easy, but that's how you do it. And the key bit of that is usually finding something like we've been doing with items, right? You find something that does something similar or has close art and then modify it and then use that. Now, Zenblack did give me some, I'm just going to open all of these because he gave me a whole bunch of things that were already BAMs that we can just assign straight up to items. So let me come back to my BAM work folder. And let's sort by BAMs because he gave me, oh, yeah. In fact, this also needs to go. The Red Bless, I believe, was something we were going to use for Executioner's Eyes. Play visual effect. Yeah, so I mentioned that it would be nice to have like a Red Bless to go for this. So here's the normal Bless. And let's see what the one he gave us looks like. Open file. Yeah, so there it is, except in red. Oh, that looks nice. Okay. So we're going to, let's go back to, we're going to make one more change to, so first let's get this into the BAM folder because we're going to use it. We're going to put this in the BAM and we're going to call this G3C exec, I don't know, X, because it's going to be the actual animation. So now if we go back to the spell, all right, so it's playing the visual effect, except it's going through a VVC, and the VVC is what plays the effect. So the VVC is basically, like a set of instructions that tells the engine, I want you to play this BAM for this long, and then maybe follow it up with another BAM. It's basically, if you were to tell just to play the BAM, it would just play the BAM from like frame 0 to whatever its end frame is. And depending on the duration, it may cycle it and play it over when it gets to the end. So VVC gives you a little bit more control over how a BAM gets played as a spell effect. And then within the VVC itself is where it plays, is where you designate what BAM to play and like what sounds to play with it. So we're going to need, there's no way we can basically say play this VVC, but use a different BAM. So we're also going to have to clone the VVC into using, we're basically going to have to clone this and then just change like this BAM reference to the new BAM that Zenblack has provided. So what we're going to do is first we're going to update this so it points to the VVC that we're about to create, and we're just going to call it the same thing, G3C exec. I think did I name it X? I think X. Yes, X. Okay. And then rather than create and ship one, we're going to take that existing VVC. We're just going to go copy existing. We're going to grab the existing bless VVC, which is, oh shoot, what was it? Hold on, let me save this really quick. And I'll grab the one in the game since that one's still using the old one. All right, save over it. Okay. Let's close this. Let's go back to the game and use the one in the game because it's still using the old reference. I updated the VVC reference in the one in our repo, but the one currently in the game. All right. IC bless AI. All right. So we're going to copy existing IC bless AI.vvc. We're going to rename it. We're going to go override, and we're going to name it G3C exec x.vvc. And we're just going to make that one single change to the BAM reference that's in it. So we want to write at 0x08 at offset 8. And because this is a text field, we're going to write ASCII. So we're writing ASCII, and then we're going to write this text, since the BAM is also the same name. So this is something that when you're writing ASCII, you should get in the habit of doing. So the #8 basically tells Waidu to write 8 characters even if I don't give you 8 characters. And the reason why that's important was, imagine if instead of this, this was just, we just named this something like G3CX, right? So Waidu looks at this and says, all right, you've given me 5 characters. Let's go to offset 8 and I'm going to write 5 characters. So what's going to end up happening is it's going to only replace the first 5 characters of this field. Right? So you're going to end up with something like G3CEX, and then the SHI from before is going to be left over. So when you tell it this #8, that basically says, even if I only give you 5 letters, write 3 blank characters after it to make it a total of 8, so that it will completely erase whatever is there, so you don't end up with that half overwritten type of thing. In this case, it's a little redundant because I am giving it straight up 8 characters. But this is just a good habit to get into of whenever you're writing ASCII, because ASCII especially, Waidu will stop writing as soon as you give it characters unless you force it to cover the entire field. So this is, even though it's not needed at all in this field, this is a good habit to get into whenever you're writing ASCII, to always give it write 8 characters. Or if you're writing there are some fields that are 32, give it 32 or 16 or whatever the length of the field that you're writing, always give it a pound, and a number of characters. So basically this is going to duplicate the existing bless animation into a new VVC that is going to be referring to the new BAM. So let's rerun this. Not the BAMR screen. I want this screen. So let's refresh our tree again. So let's take a look at our item, or not. Let's start out with the spell. So our spell, G3C exec. So Executioner's Eyes, it's going to be cast. It's going to display the Executioner's Eyes icon on everybody who's affected, and then it's also going to play the visual effect. It's going to play this G3C exec X, and if we take a look at it, that in turn is going to play our new red bless BAM. So instead of getting like the normal yellow, they'll get the red bless. So we've just added and created a spell animation. Again, credit where credit's due. This came from Zen Black after we made this item, and I mentioned that we were going to use bless. He sent this to me. So, and this is going to look really nice in game. So that's it. So let's see what other BAMs he's given me. So let's go back to BAM work. That was the red bless. Let's see. Because some of these were for items that we ended up not doing. So let's see what else we got. We got the red bless. Let's just grab. Oh, he gave us lunar shards. The halberds were one I brought over this morning. Let's see. So, yeah, so I brought over the halberd ones as an example this morning. That's the one we just made. That's red bless. This is another default icon that I just dropped in this morning. And those are the portrait icons. So let's see what else we got here. Let's open all of these. Hot icon. So I think this is for, well, let's look at what else we got. So I think this is for, yeah, I think so. Yeah, hot sea. So this is in the item thread I had posted as an example the halberd of the chimera, I don't know if it's chimera or chimera or how you pronounce it. So he had done one for me, not realizing that I actually already had the artwork for this. So, yeah, so these are the halberd of the chimera. And then let's see, we've got, this is just a small shield bam, it looks like. Maybe this is the vine shield. We could certainly use it as the vine shield, since the vine shield is a small shield. Oh, and I think this is, oh, this is for an item that we ended up not doing. This is an item I think proposed by Grand Inquisitor that I think J. Mary rejected for one reason or another. So these two, as pretty as they are, aren't needed. And then he did ones for Sue's lunar shards. These are those. Ooh, that is nice. Oh, and he even did the 2-cycle BAM, so these can be used for the original too. Nice. And then he also did the description ones. Nice. These are really nice. Okay. So those are straight up BAMs they give us. So let's use this as the vine shield. And then how about the camera? We can use this as the, because it's multicolored, we could use this as that paintbrush halberd that we made for Krevstack. Yeah, so let's do that. All right, so I think these were the two that were the yeah, those are the two that we don't want. We want these two, we want the lunar shards, we want the chimera. So I'm just going to bring these over into the BAM folder, and then we need to name them properly to go with the correct items. So let's bring up our items. Let's start with the lunar shards. G3C lunar. All right, so let's change this as a string to G3C loon I. And then the C icon is going to be G3C loon C. And then the ranged icon also needs to be updated. G3C loon I. All right, so that's the lunar. Let's change these to match. So we need these to match the name. Lunar icon, so this is going to be that. And then this one's going to be the C icon. C, all right. And then let's have icons for the Realm Shaper's Breast. So I'm going to reuse that halberd of the chimera. I'm going to reuse it for the brush. So we're going to add this as a string. This is going to be G3C brush I. And this string is going to be G3C brush C. copy that because that's also going to be used on the melee header. Oh, you're not letting me replace that? Oh, that's annoying. All right. C brush I. All right, let's save this, and then let's go back and rename these icons. So this is going to be the G3C brush I. And this is going to be brush C. And these last two ZB icons, these are going to be for the vine shield. So let's save our changes here. Where's our vine shield? There it is. So once again, G3C vine I. Into this string, G3C vine C. And it doesn't have any ability, so those are the only two places we need to change it. Okay, and then let's rename these. So G3C vine I and vine C. And then let's really quickly, let's power rename. Let's make these all lowercase. Apply. Boom. All right, all the BAMs are lowercase. And then let's get the items that I just changed, because now they have proper BAM references. All right, now let's reinstall, make sure everything's working fine. We'll see. So now when we come to these items, at least the ones where we've done this for example, the lunar shards now have this nice little spiffy icon. Same with the vine shield. And then what else? What other ones did we did? We did the Realm Shaper's brush. Uses what was originally going to be the halberd of the Chimera, but because actually this works really well, right? Because the Realm Shaper's brush is a halberd, and because it paints red, green, and blue, it uses the same multicolored idea in this icon kind of applies to it. And then what was the other one we did? I think it was just those three, wasn't it? Yeah. Now the other thing we can do here is one thing that we've not really paid too much attention to is you notice that we have these set color effects. And these are what if you go to your inventory screen and you see your character and they're holding a weapon, these set colors control what colors turn up on your paper doll when they're holding the weapon on the paper doll. So what we can do is we can come back to let's open the icon. And it's a little hard to see because we can't zoom in, but it's got like a red blade. Actually, hold on. Let me pull up something off screen really quick and see if I can, because he gave me a ping of this, and it's going to be easier to look at with a ping. All right, let me save this image. The BAM work, and we'll work off of that instead. Oh, I already saved it. Oh yeah, there it is. So it's got a red blade, it's got a green handle, and then kind of a golden or a brass or something along the lines of a head. So we can look at these effects here, and we've got one for the grip. We've got one for the head or the blade minor, and then the head, blade, staff, major. It's not always clearly defined what is what, so we're going to take our best guess. So I would interpret head, blade, staff, major as this bit, as the red part. So we're going to say that that part should be this, should try to match this red. So we're going to try and find a nice red that matches that. That's probably a little too dark. which is always the red, but it's a little bit lighter than that. Maybe metallic red might work. I don't want, I'm looking at this, it's not, I wouldn't describe it as pink, but it's, I feel like that's still, a metallic red is too dark, but and let's go with that for now. We can always take a look at this id game and see how good it looks. All right. So this is the head blade miner. So to me, head blade miner would be this little bit, kind of this golden, almost you know, dark yellow type of thing. So let's see if we can find a color that matches, that does for that. So Merchant Major Amber. Remember, everything up in the 200s is random. So even if we gave it this color, that doesn't mean that it would necessarily actually end up that color in game. So I think something like the light gold, I think this is, let's just go with that and we'll see how that looks. And then finally we have the weapon grip or staff. So that should be, let's try to match that to this green. That very kind of vivid green. This is the right color, but too light. That I feel like is not quite bright enough. Dark sea green is a little too turquoise. Let's go with the light green. I think the green could work, but let's try the light green. All right, so let's save this. And let's actually go into the end of the game and see what this item is going to look like in game. So let's fire up the game. Alright. Let's just continue from whatever I had. And we've got Viconia and a monk, so neither one of them I think could even wield this. So let's add in. Let's add in a CamDawg. So I think he even has proficiencies in them. 14 maybe? Alright, 15? Oh, come on. Is it oh, I'll bet it's CamDawg. Yeah, it's CamDawg. CamDawg 14. Alright, let's just control Q you into the party. Let's create this item. 3C brush. There we go. Let's identify it. Oh, this. Okay, so clearly there's something wrong with the BAM that we need to fix because it's not showing up there. It's showing up here just fine. Let's give it to Killborn. Okay, so we've got the green handle, but I would say the yellow and the red, what it considers Blade Major and Blade Minor are the exact opposite of what I think. Because we want a big red blade and then we want a yellow head. So let's reverse those two colors. And then let's also figure out what's going on with the description BAM and why it's not showing up. So let's go ahead and quit this. All right, let's come back to the item. So the easy thing is swapping those two colors is simple. G3C. The brush. All right, so the light gold, this is color index 3, so we'll change it. We'll just swap it here. It's 3 for 101. Update value, and then change this one instead to... And that's also, especially when you're setting these colors, you always need to check in game, because what you think is, you know, a major or whatever, it may disagree with. So let's take a look at these. Oh, it's got frame 0, -1. What is going on here? All right, let's add this to... I think that's enough to do it. Let's save this directly to the override and see if it fixes it. Because I always have the original back in the game folder. Okay. All right, now let's try There we go. Okay. I think that fixed it. Let's take a look in game. Oh, I didn't save with Kildorn in the party. Q. Let's read the item. Let's identify it. Let's give it over to Kildorn. First, let's see. Description image is fixed. That's a little more like it. Now we've got the red blade, we've got the gold top, we've got the green handle. So now it matches the icon here, which is what we were searching for. So this is our item that we spent like hours working on. And you'll notice on the game screen too, you'll notice it's got the little red blade, the golden highlights, and then the green handle.
So be it.
I shall follow your strength.
So this is the item that I know is going to need a lot of testing. Let's see if it actually can change so many colors. Yep, she's red.
I expected as much.
Let's see if we can get it correct.
I shall do my utmost.
Oh, and she's healing herself because her AI is on. So that was red on red. So, and I think the unaffected by effects was maybe her magic resisting security.
Aye, as you wish.
Let's clear off everything for her.
I am yours to direct, my friend.
So let's see if we can get a color other than red.
Strike you down.
Yep, now she's green.
There's destiny. Oh, now not
All right, well, it's good to know at least the basic colors work. So I'm going to have to go through and really test,
Duty calls. I
you know, all these variants that CamDawg provided. But so there we go. We've got our nice item icon in the game. We've matched the colors. The description icon works. So let's go ahead and quit out of this. I like the look. It looks a real Faconia improvement. Yeah. I wonder what she would look like in blue. But so it's good to know that at least our basic coloring work. It's very clear when we've hit a target and we've painted them. So that's nice. That item by itself, again, I'm probably gonna have to spend a day just bug fixing that, because again, there's so many variants that can happen there. So the other thing, and I think Zenbach also gave us just some. He gave me a, hold on, let me double check my Discord again, because he gave me a ring base that was for. Oh yeah, he gave me a beautiful ring, but it's for. Oh no, it's a belt. It's not a ring. So he gave me a belt. We'll have to do this later, because unfortunately, this never got posted to the thread. He just PM'd me, so it never went through J Mary's review. Okay. So that's what these are. Hold on. I mean, look at this. This is freaking gorgeous. For a black, he calls it the Black Dragon Belt. That thing is pretty. And then Minstrel's Defense is one of the other items that is pending, because it's going to be a pain in the butt to make. So I think that's it in terms of art. To make an item icon, again, the key is, and I'll give an example here with the halberd. So I'm just gonna make a quick folder, and we're just gonna make an iHalb 01. Is that what I have here? 03. So my process is basically you use Bammer to start with like an existing BAM. In this case, I'm using the item inventory icon for the Halb 03, which I think is the +2 halberd. And then output it to iHalb 03, and then create a matching BAMD to go with it. BAMD. I know that is correct. Oh, because it's not .item, it's .bam. Sorry. There we go. So basically, I use Bammer to create the BMD and to extract the PNGs, and then I just update. Let's try that again. So these are the two halberd icons, and then I would just bring this because these are PNGs. You can update these in Photoshop, GIMP, CorelDRAW, MS Paint, whatever your graphics program of choice. You can just update these, drop them back in, and then rerun Bammer with that same BAMD, just like we did for this. That we're going to say Bammer, and we use that BAMD as the input. Although 3 dot BAMD, and then output it into like new bam dot bam. And then from that, you have a new BAM. So that's how I do it. For me, that's the simplest way because it basically gets it out. Because you're cribbing from an existing item icon, you don't need to worry about, what are my frames and cycles supposed to look like? Are they centered, right? How do I need to center them? Because you're just updating PNGs, all this information is still valid. You're essentially like uncompiling it, updating pings, and then recompiling it in the exact same format, so that you don't have to worry about all the nitty-gritty details that are in here. That for me has always been the easiest way to do it. And it dovetails with our philosophy for everything else, right? Find something that's similar, use it as a basis, and adapt from that rather than trying to build something from scratch. This is always going to be the easiest way. And try to find a similar item because, for example, we would not want to build a halberd inventory icon off of a ring because rings tend to be small little square icons. Even the larger icon, when you're moving on the screen, they tend to be very, very small. So whereas halberd icons tend to show the whole halberd, they tend to be tall and skinny. So use something that's similar in size to what you're going for, right? If you're making a new BAM for a belt, start with an existing belt. If you're doing an arrow, grab an arrow, that sort of thing. But that's basically it. The one thing you do need to worry about is, sorry, I completely lost my train of thought. Portrait icons are handled separately. Description icons are a different format. Item icons, be aware that if you're pulling them from the EEs, they might just be the single frame icon, which works fine for EEs. And if your item is only for the EEs, that's fine. But if you're using the original, you need the 2-cycle BAM that has the small and the large version. So if you look in the E's and you can only find like the one image inventory icon, go back to the originals and pull one of those BAMs and use that as your basis instead. So I think that's going to be it for artwork. The rest of these, probably what I'm going to do, unless I get more artwork or other artists that want to step up and make artwork for these, what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably just going to take an existing BAM and recolor it. And something like that is fairly simple and straightforward, and I don't think that's something tremendously exciting to watch me do. Because it's basically like you take a ping, you isolate the area that you want, and then you play around with hue and saturation or an overlay to get it to recolor it to how you want it to. So it would be more like how to use Photoshop than it is how to, actually do modding work. And again, there are people who are way more talented who can show you how to do stuff like that a lot better than I can. So we're about an hour and a half in, or an hour 40. Let's take another break. And then when we come back, let's try to wrap up the last of, I think, our simple items that we have proposed. And then we will, and then that'll probably take us to the end of the stream for today. I mentioned this beginning as a programming note, there is not going to be a stream tomorrow. I'm going to pick up streams again on Monday, but I might push them back a little bit. Like I said, my wife's been gone for the past week, so it's been really easy to set up a time in the house where I don't have to worry about, I'm interfering with her work or her phone calls because she also works from home. So I think I might push streams back starting on Monday to like 10 a.m. my time, which would be an hour later than they have been starting. But I'll let you know one way or the other, probably on the live stream recap thread. But I'm thinking that starting Monday, the streams will be at 10 a.m. my time instead of 9 a.m. So let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we will continue with items. And if you guys have any questions about artwork, even just completely unrelated to like item and spell dams, by all means ask them in the comments or in the chat, and we will get to those when we come back. So, but yeah, we'll take a quick little break for a couple of minutes here, guys. All right, welcome back. Gave me a chance to scarf a banana and get a throat drop. So we left off yesterday in Mars's Dart Bonanza. We did the Dart of the Lethargic Soul, although we left it. We still haven't really solved that I plan to come back to at some point. So let's just go ahead and move on to the Vampiric Dart of Eternal Hunger. So we will start again with a good item. Hold on, let me close some. I've still got some spare windows up here that I no longer need because we're not working on BAMs anymore. All right, so let's start with. In fact, we can actually use the previous dart as the basis for the new one. And this one is Vampiric something or other. We'll use Vamp as its internal name. So let's copy this. G3C Vamp item. All right, and let's see. This is, I think, a +4 dart. It's basically a +4 dart. +4, +4. 20% chance to steal hit points. And a 10% chance to restore one forgotten spell slot to the wielder. And then also has a vampiric once per day. Oh yeah, this was the bit that I wasn't sure how to exactly do, but I think I've got a good idea. So I think what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to say when you put it on, it'll basically drain your constitution by 1 point. And we'll make that last for, I don't know, an hour. But then we'll prevent it from doing it again for 24 hours. So it will do this no more than once every 24 hours. I think that's a good compromise. Because one of the problems with equipping effects is equipping effects are assumed, well, I shouldn't say assumed, but the way the engine is built is it expects equipping effects to always be in effect. So having things like this where I just want something that happens on equip and not just continuously while equipped is a little tricky. And we've run into this a little bit before, but I think we can do this. And the reason why it's a problem is you as a player think of an equipping event is I have put the dart as my active weapon. Whereas the game says every time it loads the character with this dart, it essentially goes through and reruns your equipping effects. So every time you change areas, every time you load a save game, this potentially gets reapplied. So you're going to be like, why is this happening again? And that's why. So there's no real good way to distinguish when you've properly actually equipped an item versus when it's just being processed because you've loaded a save game. So we kind of have to mess around with that and maybe we'll just say that it occasionally will drink blood, because there are going to be times when, the player is going to have this on, they're going to run through the entire Underdark, never equipping this dart. And then every so often it's just going to pop up and grab a constitution point. So we'll make it so that it's not more than once every 24 hours, but that's probably about as best as we can do for that. So first, right now it's a +3 dart. Let's go and do the basics to make this a +4 dart. So let's go to the ranged. It's going to be 1d3. It's going to be +4 to hit. And damage bonus is going to be +4. Speed also increases 1 for every level of enchantment, but these darts are already maxed out at 0 speed, so we don't need to worry about that. This one is it's immune to slow. Yeah, so that's what all these are all the leftover immune to slow effects. So we can remove those. And now we have a very basic +4 returning dart. It's the on-equip effect when a magical weapon ends and the previous weapon is held together. I believe it also applies then. So like, you mean like if you had like Melf's Meteors and you run through your stash and then it pops on your regular sword or bow or whatever the mage has equipped. I believe it will also apply then. Yeah, it has to, because your old effects go into effect. So yeah, it's got to. The magical weapon slot, which is used for stuff like Flame Blade, Melf's Minute Meteors, the Icewind Dale version of Mordenkainen's Sword, Spiritual Hammer, that sort of thing. those use a special hidden weapon slot that's normally not accessible to the player, and they can't be overridden by your normal weapon slot. So yeah, once it expires and it goes back to your normal weapon, I would assume the equipping effect will go back into effect when that happens. So, all right, so let's first deal with what it does on hit. So at 20% chance to steal 1d4 hit points, and 10% chance to restore a forgotten spell. And he says maybe change to 5 if overpowered. Well, that's the thing. This thing's already pretty stacked. But all right, so first let's do the 20% chance to steal 1d4 hit points. So in the olden days, on the original image, on the original game, if you look at stuff like draining spells like Larlock's Minor Drained or Vampiric Touch, there was no way to get the totals to match because you were essentially rolling 1d4 for the target and then rolling 1d4 for the wielder. And the nice thing is the EEs added a special mode for damage. So we're going to add an effect. We're going to add, this is going to be damage. It's going to be to the preset target. Normal damage. It's going to be, I think the item does missile by default. Yeah. It's going to be missile damage to match what the item already does. It's going to be instant permanent because it's damage. It's going to be a 20% chance, so 0 to 19. And down here in the flags, this was added in the EEs. These are not in the original game. So we want to transfer hit points. Bits 1, 3, and 4 are. We want to transfer HP to the caster. But we have two modes here. Non-cumulative. Okay, I got it. So if we use this, it means that I can, every hit where this happens, I can steal HP every time. Whereas this, it will only steal HP and won't let me steal more until it's done, I think. I think this is the difference between like opcodes 18 and 19. All right. So I think we want bit 0. So basically we're going to hit on 19% chance. We're going to do one die that's 4-sided worth of missile damage, and that those HP will be transferred to the caster. Yep. So that's our HP drain. If a weapon has multiple damage types, how do we know which one's strength and buff based plus damage bonuses will apply? So it's this one. This is the one that's important. So this is the amount that is used for the targets. You have like your crushing armor class, your slashing armor class. That's based on this. Any damage that you add as effects are secondary. This is the main one. So this is what's going to determine the AC. Now you'll notice we do have some hybrids, right? Piercing or crushing, piercing or slashing, crushing or slashing. In these, I think it's whatever the target is. I think it's whatever they're worse against is what goes on, is how this gets picked. So yeah, this is the primary, right? This is your primary damage. Everything that goes on, everything that gets tacked on through op 12, you can make this 0 damage directly and then put all the damage out here, and this is going to be what determines the target's AC and what works against it. As for whether or not strength bonus applies, that's all flags here. Whether or not the strength bonus applies, whether we want to apply the strength bonus just for damage or just to hit, or for both. So, and the important thing too is stuff that gets tacked on as damage. This does not get included as part of, say, like your backstabbing multiplier. So obviously that it doesn't matter for this because this is a ranged weapon. But if you have, you know, oh, I'm blanking on the name, the longsword in Baldur's Gate 1 that has the cold damage, the +2 longsword that everybody wants, that I'm completely blanking on. It's yeah, let's save this really quick. Varskona, that's what I'm thinking of. So Varskona, right? Like this damage would never get hit with the backstab multiplier. Yes, there's a sword in Icewind Dale that does cold damage only. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. If you were to take a look at that sword and you were to come here, it basically has a damage bonus of 0. It uses probably slashing because that's what you want the armor class to do. But it's got 0 damage bonus. It's going to have 0 dice thrown and 0 dice size. And then it's going to have a damage effect that has like the 1d8 cold damage. Yeah, I know that sword. And what sucks is that means that backstabbing with it is absolutely pointless because the multiplier does not apply. Yeah, it's Varskona. That's what I was thinking of. But so this is a nice way to supplement damage, but just be aware that, for example, Daystar has almost all its extra damage is through external opcodes. So if you backstab with it, you're still, even though it does double damage to undead, you know, it's like 1d8 damage and then 1d8 extra to undead. Only the original 1d8 gets multiplied. Only the stuff that's in the base bit of the melee header is what gets multiplied in stuff like backstabbing. So, all right, so let's go back to our item. So it's just something to be aware of. We're on G3 Vamp. All right. So that's our life draining. So yeah, even with backstab, this will always only just be 1d4. Oh yeah, and then because it's a bastard sword, you also can't backstab. But if it was a longsword or a dagger, it would be the same problem. Your backstab multiplier would basically be multiplying 0, and you'd get just the base cold damage. All right, so it does 1d4 damage, and then it says it has a 5% or 10% chance to restore a forgotten spell slot. So let me take a look at, because I don't remember the opcode offhand. Let's take a look at. Is it Wondrous Recall that does this? Open new window, right? Now, it brings back 2 memories that have been cast. Okay, it's op 261. And spell level, I think this means the cap, the highest spell level that it can restore. All right, so let's just copy this effect directly. And I think we can just paste it. Yep, we're going to restore lost spells to the self. No power level. Oh. Do you want it to be wizard or priest? I guess is our next question. I didn't realize it couldn't be both. I don't want this to be 0 to 5%. Actually, no, because we want this to be exclusive from the. So from 1 to 20%, it'll do the life drain. 20 to 25%, it'll restore the lost spells. No save, self. And then, all right. Yeah, so I don't think he specifies. Oh, it's a dart. So clerics aren't going to be using this anyway. I mean, I suppose rangers could, but all right. So based on that, I'm going to assume he wants mage spells restored. And then I think let's cap it, because this is only a +4 item. I say only a +4 item. Let's cap it and just say maybe let's just say up to maybe spell level 4. So you might, if you're very lucky, you'll get an iron skin back, but I want to give you, a breach or a ruby ray or something like that. So that's going to be a 5% chance. And I know he said 10, but it's now already doing something special on a quarter of its hits. So boom and boom. All right. So is Ram Staff all in the base? We can take a quick look, actually. Let's save this item. I think it's not, or I think it is, which is why it's so effective. Ram. So hold on, the description says it does 1d6 plus 10. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what it does here in the base. 1d6. Where's our damage bonus? Yeah. 1d6 plus 10. So yes, this would get multiplied. I'm pretty sure the plus 6 is 1d6 plus 12. But then the piercing will be a separate effect. So that's not going to get multiplied. So yeah, we've got 1d6 plus 12. And then the piercing, the 1d4 piercing is a separate effect. So the piercing damage does not get multiplied, but the 1d6 plus 12 will, which is why this is such a brutal backstab weapon. No. Druids can use darts, but I'm going to make the executive decision that he's thinking mage spells. And if he wants to pop up and say otherwise, that's fine. But the problem with it doing both is that it's going to give like a... well, let's see. Is there anybody who can use both sets of spells? And be able to use the darts. Clerics can't. Druids can't multi-class with mages. Neither can rangers. All right. So in that case, yeah. All right. We'll go ahead and do both then. Oh, it's helpful if I go back to the right item. There's never going to be a time when it's going to restore, when it's going to be able to restore one of each. So vamp. All right. So let's just duplicate that effect. Copy and paste. So yeah, we'll cover both. One for wizard and one for priest. Because, yeah, the only multi-class that will share arcane casting will be a mage cleric, and clerics can't use darts. Or a mage cleric can't use darts. So, all right, so save, overwrite, okay. So there's our on-hit effects. And then we've got, you can do Vamp Touch at max level once per day. And then the Constitution thing. All right, so first we'll do the easy one. Let's find our scroll of Vampiric Touch. There we go. Oh. Sorry, I wanted the scroll, not that. I'll copy this. Bring this back to our Vampiric item. We'll paste. Oh, except I want you to... Oh, for crying out loud. I want the range needs to be the first ability. That's what I'm trying to do here. All right, let's just remove that. So range, we've got the level drain, that, and to this, what is Vampiric Touch's spell code? Spell Wizard 314. So let's change the icon to Spell Wizard 314B. And we want the item to recharge. Recharge after resting. It's going to get one charge. It's going to cast Vampiric Spell. And he wants to do it at max level. What is max level for Vampiric Touch? Where does this cap? It caps at level 12. All right. So we'll have it cast this at... oh, here. Cast it at level 12. And not cast normally. We want it to cast instantly at the specified level. Is it permanent? All that is correct. All right, let's save, overwrite, and okay. All right, so now for our con drain. Yeah, we're going to do this as an outside spell
that's going to be cast as soon as you equip it. And then it's going to make you immune to that drain for 24 hours. Yeah, I mean, there's probably ways with overlapping spells and repeating Fs, you could be more precise about when somebody's actually equipping, but it's complicated, and again, as this is supposed to be a beginner's tutorial, we're not going to do that. The other thing too is there's one of the things I learned with Divine Remix. Divine Remix, we really pushed the old engine to do stuff it was not designed to do. And one of the things you learn along the way is that just because you can do something, it's not always a good idea to do it, because you reach a point where you're so far out there on the cutting edge of the engine that your code becomes really fragile. And by fragile, I mean it's not going to play well with other people's code, or it's going to be very easy to break because it relies on everything going just right in the engine and things being, things being nothing going out of sequence, right? It requires everything to go in the right sequence, and you end up trying to account for so many edge cases that the more complicated it gets, the more likely it's going to fail. So that's why we're going to do this very, very simple way of doing it. Even though it's not exactly in the spirit of what Mars is looking for, it's probably the easiest. It's the simplest way to kind of keep the spirit of what he wants with it, even if it's not exactly it as it is how he's describing. So let's see, and then 2024 for priest and 25-29 to wizard. I left them at the same range, and the reason why is because there's never going to be a time when somebody's going to trip when both of these are actually going to do something, right? Mage, sorcerer, mage, thief, fighter mage, thieves can all use this item. None of them have divine spells. And then if you look on who uses divine spells, priests can't use this item. Druids can, but druids can't. Druids can only dual class with rangers. Both of them use divine spells. Same rangers and clerics outside of druid rangers also can't dual class. So there's never going to be somebody who's using this item who has access to both wizard and priest spells. So I might as well make them in the same effect range, because nobody's going to be able to trip these at the same time. So that's why it doesn't matter to me if they're the same range or not. Effectively, it's the same outcome. All right, so let's go ahead and add the effect. It's going to be another simple. We're going to cast the spell, which is 146. We're going to cast it on self. It's going to be cast instantly. Caster level doesn't really matter. It's going to be permanent. We want it to happen 100% of the time. Excuse me. And it's going to be G3C Vamp. That's going to be the name of the spell. No saving throw, no nothing. All right. So we're going to save the item, because I think that should be it for the item. Now let's go over to spells. And let's see if there's anything that has an existing Constitution drain. If so, we'll use that as our... So what we're going to do is we're just going to grab any spell. We're going to quickly change this effect to Constitution bonus, and now we're going to find the selected attribute. And this is going to basically search through the spells to see if there's any spell that uses Constitution bonus. So we have a whole bunch. Let's see. OHD Devil. I think these might be Devil Shade drains. Barbarian Rage. Constitution Increase. That's going the other way. Aaron Yes. Constitution bonus. It increments. That's a bonus. Let's see. Energy Drain. No, because that probably comes with that's going to come with a whole bunch of level drain stuff. Let's check chapter 3 drain. Yeah,
And that's a -1 con. All right, so whatever chapter 3 drain is, we're going to use that as our. We just changed it temporarily, so we're going to use drain. We're going to add this. We're going to use this as our basis. Add copy. 3 vamp. Spell. Okay. Ta-da. We don't want sleep, lighting effects. Basically, we just want the con. So con, -1. This is exactly what we want. And I said it's going to be for 1 hour. 1 hour is 300. 300 is the time. Yeah, because a day is 7,200. Yeah. All right, so you're going to get hit with the Constitution bonus. It's going to last for, that hasn't updated yet. It's going to last for an hour. And then, let's remove that. Hold on. And then immediately after you get hit with that, you're going to be protected from any future applications of this. It's going to immediately block any other future applications of the spell, except it's going to block them for 7,200, which is a full day. Is it limited? Notice spell type. All that is correct. All right, so you pick up the item, you get hit with -1 con, and then it blocks itself for 24 hours. So if you unequip it and keep re-equipping it, or if you load a saved game, or if you transfer between areas, this keeps getting blocked. This block will stay in effect for 24 hours. After that, the first time you load an area or transfer, or you move to a new area or load a save game, or unequip and equip the item, you're going to hit with the con penalty again. So let's save, overwrite, okay. Oh, and I think we have a portrait icon for ability score drain. So let's add a slave portrait icon, and I think ability score drain. There we go. Also for 300 seconds. This is unused, so let's just 0 it. So you'll also get that, and let's see, we may have a Constitution drain an existing string. Constitution. Do we have Constitution increase? I think if there's an existing Constitution, we do have modification. All right, that's good in generic. 14029. I'm just going to note that. Just because that might be we can use that if we can't find a drain. Lost 1 point of const. That makes it sound permanent. And I think I think that's from the Hell Trials. Inadequate con. Yeah, let's just go with the intentionally vague Constitution modification. So let's add that too. So we're going to copy and paste, and then this should be 139. We're going to display the string on the preset target. Oh, I didn't update this. And we're going to display, what was that string? 14029. Update the value. This is now unused. Strings you always want to display as instant permanent, so I don't need a duration. So whenever it happens, they'll at least get a message in the combat feedback that this is happening, that there's a Constitution modification. All right, so let's save, overwrite, okay. And then let's double check that I did attach it to the item, did I not? I did. Okay. Cast instantly. Yeah. Oh, that was correct. All right. I think that's it for this. Next, let's consider the price, right? So we set the Dart of the Lethargic Soul at 2,500. Now we're going to +4. That can 5% chance to restore spells. You get a max level vampiric drain. You get a 1d4 life drain, 5% chance to get a spell back. But it does have the con drain. So let's tentatively put this up at, let's say, because +4 is also an important breakpoint, because with +4 you can pretty much hit every enemy by default, including like demi-liches. So let's bump this up to 5,500. I think it's going to be a reasonable price for this. And again, right, if you have other thoughts on what the price should be, let me know. And then we need to add it to the TP2. First, let's copy over the spell. There's nothing special in it, so we can just do it in the big spell pile copy. Up. Save it. And then here, let's grab the description and everything else from here. All right. Let's put that in game tray really quick. We're going to start at 46 and 47. All right. Oh, hello, DK. 46 and 47, and this is G3C Vamp. No, because it's a limited effect, it will expire. So anything that is... anything that is a limited effect gets attached to a creature file, and then when it expires, it goes away. So it's basically when you put on that dart and that spell goes into effect, if you were to open the creature file, you know, in Near Infinity or like EE Keeper or whatever, you would see they'd have like their normal constitution listed, but then in the effects, you would find there's a -1 constitution effect to it. Ability scores are a little bit special in that if we were to do that in a permanent mode, it would actually change. There's 2 permanent modes, and depending on which one you use, it will either directly alter their constitution score in their creature file, in which case, yes, you would have to undo it, or it will attach it as an effect. And if it's attached as an effect, then when you look at your record screen, like the color of the constitution score would either be in green or red to show that there's been a modification to it. So, but because we're using this in an instant limited timing mode with a duration, at 300 seconds, it will simply expire. That effect will go away, and the con will go back to normal on its own. We don't need to, permanently take away one and then permanently add one back. That's the nice thing about time limited effects is, for the most part, they just go away on their own, and you don't need to do anything special to restore them. So, all right, we're copying the spell over. Let's do the. I see your question, DK. Let me wrap this up, and then I will do my best to answer that. So, all right, 1045. So the name is going to be the 1046 string. Oh, 1046. And then at 1047 will be the description. And then, because it's so similar to the previous dart, I'm actually going to use this as the starting point. All right, except it's going to be a +4, 1d3 +4. Equipped abilities is going to be talking about the best of string. Opcode 139. No, basically you give it permanent. It basically shows up once in the combat feedback, and that's it. It'll just show up once. It'll give its message, and it'll go away. even if you do it, I think it's instant limited timing, it still only just appears once and goes away. So always just do that as instant permanent with no duration. You can do it as a delay permanent, like if you wanted the message when like the effect expired, you could do it with timing delay permanent, which is timing mode 4 and a duration. And if we gave it a duration of 60, then that means it will be 60 seconds from when it gets applied, and then you'll get the message. But yeah, for the message string, by convention, you just always do those in instant permanent. Because even if you do them as limited, it's not like it's going to replay that message over and over. It's just going to play it once. All right, so let's grab. This has a charge ability, so let's find something else with a charge ability, and we'll just grab that as our starting point. Charge ability. All right, so we've got charge abilities. It's going to be Vampiric Touch. Just once per day. Area effect is going to be, I think it's one creature. Let's look up our Vampiric effect spell. Open a new window. Touch. Yeah, area effect is one creature. Target loses. All right. And because we're casting it at 12, we don't have to add the scaling bit. But all right. Special. We'll just say target loses because it's being cast at 66 hit points. Hit points that are added to the caster's current hit points. And it's for 1 hour. All right. That are added to the caster's current hit points. And this lasts for 1 hour. Right? Right. Okay, so that's the charge ability. Let's see. And then combat ability, 20% chance to steal 24 hit points from the target. And then we'll say 5% chance to up to 4th level. Because that's the thing, this is a dart, which means that you're going to be able to spam these out pretty good. So you are going to get the occasional spell back. I'm comfortable with getting, magic missile back or fireball or spell trap or mirror image. I'm a little more uncomfortable when you start being able to use darts to get, spell trap back or ruby ray or time stop or improved alacrity or even some of your HLA 9th level spells. So that's why I capped this at 4. Just, I think, balance-wise, I think not letting a dart that you can basically spam endlessly restore spells. Because think about it, you could be in, your final battle with Melisande, and you can just basically turn on your team member and in between fights spam them with darts until your entire spell book is back. If we that opened basically a major exploit that you could use with these darts. All right, so we did that. Trying to say we did the Vampiric Touch, and then equipped ability. So this is going to be where we. Oh, and I missed this entirely. Additional 1 piercing damage against good land creatures. Okay, we'll get to that in 1 second. All right, and we'll say upon equipping the dart, drink some of the wielder's blood. Up to once per 24 hours. So this isn't exactly what it does, but this is close enough for it to work. And then it does 1d3 plus 4, and then it's going to do an extra versus good targets. So what's a weapon that does, how does Daystar frame it? How does Daystar frame its open damage, its extra damage? Okay, it basically breaks damage into 2 lines and does it like that. Okay. So instead of this, we're going to say
Damage is 1d3 plus 4 plus 1 versus good creatures. Instead, the damage type is missile. All right, and the weight is 0. We already have the dart returns. Only usable by neutral and evil aligned will be handled automatically by the usability flags. Okay. So let's go back to the item then, because we need to make a few changes that I missed. All right, it's only usable by neutral and evil, so that's going to be here in our unusable flags. Evil is fine, good is not. Lawful, chaotic is all fine. All right, so we're going to save that. And then we're going to add an effect. We're going to use an EFF. We're going to use it on the preset target. And it's going to be based on alignment, specifically the good mask, mask good. So mask good covers, I think we covered this, something else. The mask basically means lawful good, neutral good, chaotic good. Just like mask chaotic would be chaotic evil, chaotic neutral, and chaotic good. So that's the mask basically are like one row or one column of the alignment table. So we only want this to happen when it's somebody who's good. We always want this to happen. And then I need to make the EFF file, and we're going to call the EFF file G3C Vamp. All right, so let's save it. Okay, and then let's go to the EFFs. There's surely something that just does basic damage. Looking for something that does damage. Here we go. Add a copy. This is going to be G3C Vamp.EFF. Yep. All right, we want damage. We want it to be 1 damage. Normal is going to be missile to match the dart. Instant permanent, blah, blah, blah. We do not want it to throw dice. We just want it to be a flat +1. Everything else is fine. All right, save, overwrite, okay. All right, I think that should be it for the item. Let's grab this out of the override. There's our item spell in F. Let's bring it back here. We'll drop in the item. Oh, I didn't make a commit after we did all of the BAM work. Yeah, oh well. All right, the spell needs to go into here. The F needs to go into here. Let us double check that this installs and everything works. Oh, I'm not copying over the F file. And I have a parse error on top of everything else. All right, line 67. What have I left over? Oh, because I just dropped this in the middle of nowhere. All right, but that gives me a chance. Where am I copying over the existing F? Because I need to add this. MISC, all right. G3C vamp dot F. Okay. And then the spell too. Am I copying over the spell? I am copying over the spell. I'm copying over the item. Okay, that should be it. There we go. All right. Let's refresh the tree, make sure it gets everything. G3C vamp. Vampiric Dart of Eternal Hunger. Does that. It's got that. On the ranged. 5% chance to restore a spell up to level 4. It does on 20% chance. It does 1d4 missile damage. That is a drain. And then to good aligned creatures, it applies G3 Vamp, which does an additional point of missile damage. All right, so I think everything is good. Oh, and then one thing. Okay, so this is another multi-ability ability, so we need to add this to tooltip.
like we have before. So let's grab our item. Let's come back up to tooltip. Where's our tooltip? Edit. Here it is. Yeah, here it is. Okay. X and -1 because it doesn't have a third ability. So first, there should be an existing ranged. So is there a ranged item in here? Here we go. Axe 1, Hando 5. That's throwing axes. So one of those should be ranged. 15527. That's thrown, and then melee. Is it thrown really? I thought it was just straight ranged. I guess it's got to be thrown. Yep, everything else uses 15.527. All right, so yeah, 15.527 is the tooltip for the first ability because that's the ranged attack. And then we need Vampiric Touch as the second string. We'll open that in a new window. That's our string, 12071. All right, done and done. So I forgot to commit the first time, so let's catch up. Or I forgot to commit after we did all of the artwork. So let's go through and add a whole bunch of stuff. All of our new BAMs. Tortoise get add. Still don't agree. Dialogue hasn't changed. F. We have a new F. Items. Got everything. We added functions. Definitely need to add that. Spell. Add the Vampiric. The con drain. No stores. Nothing here. Nothing here. All right. So this is going to be item icons and the addition of we'll clarify this. This is some item icons and then added Vampiric Dart of Eternal Hunger. Make sure we didn't miss anything. We did not. Commit and push. All right. All right. So, and I'm sorry that I'm taking so long to circle back to this, DK. So DK asked, how do you make the opponent make party members less likely to die irreversible? That component actually came from, that was actually a donation from David, because that was originally part of SCS. As I recall, I think it basically just prevents you. There's opcodes you can apply to party members that basically say don't chunk. And I think the reason why it's not 100% is because those opcodes themselves are reliable. So let's see if we can find that component first. Reduce party chunking. All right, so this is component. We'll do a little side. Let's take a look at this and we'll see if we can figure out what the code is doing. So it's component 3330. All right. So what this first part does is it basically searches through all the creatures and it gives me an array of creatures that are actually in the party. So that's all this does. This is just a fancy way of being able to identify which creatures are potential party members. Then it basically goes through and it says, let's see, if the game includes SOA, copy existing, spin 770. All right, so yeah, okay, so I got it. All right, so it goes through and basically this gives me an array of all the creatures determined by whether they're potential party members or not. Then we process the array, and basically if it's a joinable NPC, we add an opcode 295 to them. So opcode 295 is your major part of anti-chunking. So we can take a look at the ISDP. What does opcode 295 do? Disable permanent death. So that's it. That protects you from most things. Now, there are still some things that can override it, which is what the extra little bit here does. So basically, anybody who can join the party gets an opcode 295 dropped on them, so that hopefully that keeps them from being chunked, or I think petrified is the other one that immediately... It should stop all the major ways that you can basically be killed and dropped immediately out of the party. And then we have a couple of extras. So Spin 770 is something, and Area 2904 is something from the Area 2905 is going to be one of the Hell Trials. So essentially, what are we doing here? We're replacing Really Force Spell Explode with Hell Exploding, and then they're going to leave party and wait. So I think this is just basically a way bypassing... This is I would guess this is probably the Selfishness Trial, where it basically permanently kills your party. This is probably a way, since Hell Explode won't actually chunk them. This is probably just a way to get around this. This is from David, so I don't, without looking more into it, I'm willing to bet that's what it is. Spin 770 is probably, that probably actually is Hell Explode directly. Let's take a look. Spin 770. Yep, this is the aforementioned Hell Explode. So we're changing Hell Explode. And what are we modifying on Hell Explode? We're changing everything to have timing 4 and a duration of 1. Oh, this is to kill Hexat. Okay. All right, so basically, oh, I see what we're doing. Okay. So anything that is supposed to be instant permanent here, we're changing it instead to be delay permanent, and we're making it happen after 1 second. So we change Hell Explode. Instead of it being instant and permanent, it's going to be permanent, but after 1 second. And so then when we force the spell, we basically force them to leave the party before Hell Explode chunks them. But because they can't be chunked because of the 295, they just die. Okay. Yeah, so we're doing some chicanery here to get around the exploding selfish death in hell. Like I said, this came from David. I'd probably have to go through it and play with it in the game to figure out exactly what it's doing here. But I think it's because that selfish is... I think because the selfish death is supposed to be an exploding death, this is some way to get around it. So, but the bulk of the work is done by Op 295 being applied to all the potential party members. So, I hope that made sense. We didn't really get too deep into it, but almost all that work is being done by Op 295. So, and it's 11:30. So I think we're going to go ahead, and I think that's more than enough for me. If you guys have any last questions you want me to take a look at, go ahead and ask. Otherwise, I think I'm going to go ahead and start doing our nightly build and wrapping it up. And while I'm doing that, or before I start, a quick reminder, no stream tomorrow. Monday stream is probably going to be starting at 10 instead of 9, so an hour later than the streams have been this week. But keep your eyes posted on G3. I'll post it in the recap. If right now, assume that it's going to be 10 unless I say something in the recap stream and the recap thread that says otherwise. So, all right, so let's go ahead and close everything out. We're going to do our versioning up to today. Let's get our back. Edit this up to 1026. Yes, save. Let's commit. This is our nightly versioning. Commit push. Boom, boom, boom. All right, let's make our new packages. All right. Come on over to GitHub. Go to the item pack. We're going to put out a new nightly, create a new nightly release. Nightly 10, 26, 24. Create a new tag. Nightly 10. Release. Let me grab my packages. It's nice that the packages are so lightweight that I can actually upload files while I'm streaming. If these things actually start to get big, that I might have to start doing this post stream. It's a pre-release, published release. We're good. Nightly is up. Our releases. All right, so that's going to be it. Like I said, tomorrow is going to be off. We'll be back on Monday, probably an hour later. I'll think about what we might want to do in the first hour. The one thing that we've not done at all is the merchant, his store file, and his dialogue. So I'm thinking in the first hour we'll probably tackle one of those three things, or maybe all of them, because I think the only items we have left, if we look at the item list, we've got one more item from Mars. And then we did the Lucky Sweater as part of the upgradable item. We've got the Defender Bastard Sword, which is slightly complicated, not terribly, but slightly complicated. We've got Subtle Doctors, which is more complicated. And then we've got the Minstrel's Defense, which I may just drop outright, because we're going to be going so far into the realms of stuff that you shouldn't be doing as a first mod. I'll take another look at it, but I suspect at this point, I think I'm leaning more to just straight up outright dropping this. And then I'd totally forgotten Zen Black had given me an item, but he did it via PM. So I'm going to double check his item. I think it's fine, because he's also provided beautiful art with it. So we've got an item from Mars. We've got the Defender Bastard Sword. We've got the Cloak of Sound Rest from Subtle Doctor, and then we've got Zen Black. So I think we've only got like 4 items left, but some of these are a little more complicated. And like, for example, when we did the Realm Shaper's Brush, that by itself almost took us an entire stream. So even though it's only 4 items, some of these are ones that we've been putting off because we know they're going to be complicated. So, like I said, we've got one more item from Mars, the Defender Bastard Sword, the Cloak of Sound Rest, and then the item that Zen Black sent me via Discord PM. So that's also a good reason why you should post things on the forum instead of saying them over Discord, because if they're via Discord, I might lose them or forget about them like I did this. So otherwise, I think that's going to be it. We will see you again on Monday to continue. Have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and thank you for joining. We'll see you on Monday.